Chicago White Sox ace Garrett Crochet only turned in a quality start. He continues to prove his worth to the White Sox and other teams, and thanks to comments made by his general manager, the trade speculation just will not quiet down. Let's see if some holes can be poked in the reasons to trade Crochet next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fan-Sided Network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the White Sox lost last night to the Houston Astros 4-1. It was a game in which the offense produced nothing, and Garrett Crochet pitched well. He wasn't dominant like he has been in his previous outings, as he gave up 3 runs, but it was mostly because the Astros lineup had a couple of hits that just found some holes. Otherwise, Crochet once again proved he is an ace. Not just a stud or a dude, but an ace. Yes, I'm having premature ace designation there. Yet, since general manager Chris Getz brought Crochet's name up a bunch of times unsolicited during his Tuesday media session, it has fueled the flames that Crochet might be traded at the deadline. And I've established I'm going to die on this hill opposed to trading Crochet. So in the first segment, I want to see if I can poke some holes in the pro-trade Crochet movement. Then the Sox are now 20-55, and they're at the 75 game mark. Let's see how they compare to other historically bad teams at the 75 game point. And finally, let's have that discussion on if Gavin Sheets is good at baseball or not. Today's episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000. That's 1-800-549-1000, or visit tnusa.com/locked-on. All right, the key point that I want to make is finding an ace is very hard to do, and developing one is an added bonus. And the Sox just accomplished both of that with Crochet. Moving Crochet to the starting rotation before the season started was more of a, let's see if he can eat some innings. And let's see if he can even do this. And the Sox got a dude. A stud in ace. Yes, I'm giving him the ace designation. The timing might not be the best since the team is terrible and he only has 2 years left of club control. And that is the 2 reasons the pro-trade Garrett camp keeps citing as the reason the Sox should move Crochet at the deadline. And I get it. I understand the argument. It makes sense. But I also think Crochet has more value to the White Sox future than the yield he can return in a trade. And that's why I think there's some holes in trading Crochet. Now, there are holes in keeping Crochet. I acknowledge it. You know, what I'm about to lay out, you could poke holes back at me. And that's fine. Let's have a discussion. You know, he could get hurt again. The next adjustment that baseball makes to him could knock him down from his status as an ace, and etc. Fully get it. But he's on an $800K deal right now with 2 more years of club control. The Sox have a ton of pitching prospects on the way. He needs to be extended and be the centerpiece of the next competitive team. You don't want to cite, well, the Sox have plenty of pitching prospects. That's the reason why you should move Crochet. And you might not agree with me, which is, again, fine. But I hope to spark some discussion outside of how bad this team is. And if you want to have a discussion, not an argument, let's have a discussion. Not a troll session. You can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com or leave comments on the YouTube page. But let's poke some holes here. Let's start first with the contract status and the calculus of the team being competitive again. You know, Chris Getz acknowledged he doesn't know when the team will be good again. And that set off some chatter yesterday, and rightfully so, since The owner said Chris Getz is going to turn things around quickly. I know Dan Bernstein on 670 The Score had an epic rant. You should go check it out on the Odyssey app. And I know Layla Rahimi, she also pointed out, if you're not going to be good by 2026, what's the point in keeping him? But here's the thing, as I've said on the show yesterday, and it was supported by the very talented Vinny Duber of CHGO, Getz might get a better idea of the timeline of being back to being competitive once the draft and the trade deadline passes. Because those are now the two biggest entries on the rebuild timeline data point. If you can get some other really good prospects back for, say, Eric Fetty, Tommy Pham, Paul DeYoung, and if you can leverage that number 5 pick into a cornerstone player, now I know you're not going to get a player that's going to help right away, like, the July 19th, I believe it's July 19th is the draft. You're going to draft that number 5 guy, and he's going to be in the lineup in the 22nd. That's just not how it works. But you get a high upside positional player, and you also leverage the picks that you have in the top 3 rounds, because those are usually the rounds that are going to give you your foundational players. And since the Sox are also thin on hitting prospects, you use the trade deadline to add more young bats. Maybe then Getz could say, okay, what we've gathered now, it's going to get us at maybe 2026 or 2027. And of course, Crochet has a chance to yield the return, but people have to realize what SoxMachine.com's James Fegan said a couple weeks back on 670 Score. The Sox want hitting prospects close to the big league level. Those are prospects teams are now not willing to part with. The pendulum has swung. It used to be they're not giving up pitching. Now teams are willing to give up pitching. Look at the San Diego Padres. What they want is hitting. And they want to keep and they want to keep hitting. And Crochet, for as good as he is, he still has an innings limit this year. So a trade partner could say, you know what? You got that innings limit. There is still the potential of injury history with his elbow. I'm only going to give you a low A or high ball player with maybe some unlimited potential. You're not going to get the dollar for dollar value. And with Crochet, with what he offers in terms of an $800,000 contract and 2 more years of club control, and he's already an ace, you can't just give away for scratch offs. You can't just give for dollar. You got to get, 125%, even 150% for Crochet. Now, the Sox could settle for blue chip players with lower ceilings like they did with Dylan Cease. But again, Crochet has a different type of value. He's not going to cost the team this year much at all, where Cease was at least making $8 million. Also, again, you have the other team's going to have a couple trade deadlines to get return in case something happens to that contender's chances. There's next off season. There's basically 2 off seasons, 2 trade deadlines that they could flip Crochet back. Getz has to walk away with more than just high floor, low ceiling prospects. Bob Nightingale pointed that out on the Score yesterday, saying the Sox have to win this trade and come away with impact players. And it cannot be what happened in the Chris Sale trade, where it first looked like a win-win, but now it's definitely advantage Boston because Boston won a championship, and the Sox failed to develop Michael Kopech, and Yohan Moncada is always hurt. And do you trust the Sox to develop a potential return? Now, I feel comfortable with the pitching development. They got Brian Bannister in charge of that area. He's got a track record, and the Sox do seem to have a plan to develop pitching. They're going to develop them up to Double-A. They'll use Triple-A if they don't have a spot for them in the rotation right away, i.e. Nick Nastorini and Jonathan Cannon. But they're going to bring them up from Double-A, give them a taste, see where that pitcher's at. And if there's work to be done, although I'd like to see them give a little bit more time on that work to be done at the major league level, send them back to AAA to work some things out, and then bring them back. It's working out for Jonathan Cannon. It is the bats I have concerns about. And that is what the Sox need to be targeting. Look at their position players the Sox have in the top 10, in their top 10 prospects. Colson Montgomery, the Sox top prospect, he is hitting home runs at AAA, but he's also has a 218 average with a 718 OPS. Edgar Cuero is now raking in Double-A, but he had his struggles to start the season. Brian Ramos is hitting 250 with a 619 OPS since going back to the minors and playing at Triple-A. Samuel Zavala is hitting 198 at high A ball. Jacob Gonzalez is the only one that you can say is having a solid season. And even then, he's been rated as a high floor, low ceiling guy. So I'm not trying to rain on the hope parade, as I still think Ramos, Cuero, Montgomery, and Gonzalez can be good big league ball players. And Cuero and Ramos, I think, can be stars. But Montgomery keeps reminding me more and more of Paul DeYoung. And Gonzalez, I just envision as being a very solid player. He could be a starter for the next 6.5 years, 7. And Zavala was a scratch-off prospect. But again, the Sox cannot walk away from a potential Crochet trade with just solid players. They need players that can be superstars because Crochet's career trajectory is on that path. And also, if the Sox will not be good by 2026, then just trade him. I get that argument, but how about extend him? He's 24. And you and I both know the owner doesn't like to pay for pitching, but he has on occasion extended young pitchers like Sale, Jose Quintana, and John Danks. Now, John Danks is probably the reason Jerry is loath to extend a pitcher since Danks got hurt and he was never the same, but you got precedent. And it's not like I'm talking about extending him forever. You try to get him signed through his 29th birthday. Get him through to year 30. That's 6 more seasons or 5 more seasons to build something around him. And the speculated teams might not be a match. Seen the San Diego Padres, rumored to be interested in Crochet, but they just don't have the hitting prospects the Sox crave. Cardinals, Yankees, and Dodgers, okay, maybe. Braves, they don't have the hitting prospects. Bleacher Report, I know it's Bleacher Report, but they bantered about the Twins and the Guardians. Do you really want to trade them within the division? Now, the Brewers and the Orioles, okay, I can make some exceptions, as those teams have the young hitting prospects that could yield a stud. But those teams have yet to give an indication that they want to make a deal where they part with their prize bats. And I love Heston Kjerstad, but the Orioles have yet to move him, probably because Anthony Santander is going to be gone in free agency. And those two franchises, they understand October is random. So play for getting to October. Then, so they play the long game. Although the Orioles did trade for Corbin Burns, and they gave up Jose Ortiz, who's given the Brewers some high returns. So the only exception I make is if the Orioles make a good offer, then yeah, take it, because they can develop hitting and they've got some potential studs in the mix. Okay, the Sox have now lost 55 games through 75 games. Let's see where they compare among their peers regarding historically bad. Next, Locked On White Sox. Here on Locked On White Sox, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round, and you know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. I got some 1099 income I will need to correctly file this year. Plus, I file jointly, and calling Tax Network USA is on my list of things to do, since I have no clue what I'm doing there, and the sources I have used for help still have not gotten back to me. With over 14 years of experience and an A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in this episode description below. And oh, how I wish I had Policy Genius when I went shopping for life insurance. Probably would not be still getting annoying calls or emails from agents I have told time and time again I'm not interested after I finally selected a policy. And it was not easy finding that policy, and that is why you should consider using Policy Genius. You may have life insurance. You may have a life insurance policy through work, but guess what? It may not go with you if you ever leave for another company, or it may not provide enough coverage for your loved one's needs if something unexpected happens to you. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. They have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance policy with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes. See how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. And then, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox face the Houston Astros in the finale of the three-game set today. First pitch is at 1:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. I just always ask, please listen to me first. I just want to double-check I had the correct first pitch. Yep, 1:10. And also, if you got a topic idea you want me to discuss, email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Just don't be a troll. You know, in this world of Twitter and anger, you and I can be civil. It's okay to disagree or even agree, but say, hey, I have a modification to that point. You know, and the one other thing I've missed in the previous segment, I know I don't really want to, cite my Brewers coverage experience because I don't want to keep establishing like, hey, the Brewers. But I did cover the Brewers when they bottomed out in 2014 and 2015. That was the first year that I didn't cover them, but I've obviously watched intently because I live behind the Cheddar Curtain. You know, they made a couple key trades in their bottom out, compiled some key prospects. And then what they did was they traded for Christian Yelich. You know, they got competitive by 2017 because they made the right trades because their system was terrible. They made the key trades. Then they, got back to being competitive in 2017 with David Stearns, who was like 29 at the time. He was young. And then they signed Lorenzo Cain, to a $90 million deal. So that's affordable for Jerry, although he might choke because he's only signed, Andrew Benintendi to $78 million. But they traded for Christian Yelich after they rebuilt their farm system. And they were literally a Game 7 going their way towards the World Series. And then what they did to stay competitive is they developed 3 young pitchers, and Christian Yelich. So they didn't make a ton of moves, but they were able to get good and competitive again in a short time window. So that's why extend Crochet. Anyways, I might make you feel more apathetic or even more upset with going over just how bad the Sox are. I mean, they are historically awful. They are 20-55, which is the worst record the Sox have ever had after 75 games. The Sox have only been around since 1900, for context. Since the Sox are ineligible for the MLB draft lottery top 9 picks because of the rule changes, there's no silver lining for being this bad. And I'm going to keep dying on that hill. So unless you put money down on the under of 50.5 on our sponsor, that our sponsor FanDuel has, I still think it's there. That's the line. There's really no reward for the Sox being historically bad, like some people are saying. People are like, be the best historically bad team. Yeah, but some of the best historically bad teams at least had the silver lining of getting a top pick. Not for the Sox. They can draft as high as 10 next year with the rule changes. And things are going to get even worse once Getz sells off veterans like Fetty, DeYoung, Tommy Pham, and possibly Luis Robert Jr. and Crochet. So while I don't see any silver lining, there's a legit shot the Sox finish as the worst team of all time in the 162-game era. So, how have the Sox gotten here? A terrible offense, a bad defense, a bullpen that cannot protect leads, and inconsistent starting pitching after Crochet and Eric Fetty. Oh, and they're going through a very tough 39-game stretch of schedule, and the Sox are 6-25 since kicking that off. That 39 stretch game of schedule has featured facing the Yankees, Orioles, Boston, Brewers, Seattle, and you still have the Dodgers and a makeup game with the Braves left to go, so it can still get even worse. So let's see where the Sox match up with some of those historically terrible teams after 75 games. First, internally, the 1970 Sox, they finished with the most losses in team history at 56-106. They were 27-48. First half was bad for the 70s, the 1970 White Sox, but it was a second half where they won just 25 games that led to that terrible record. And if the Sox are going to trade off pieces, they at least are probably on pace to breaking the all-time loss record. The least amount of wins the Sox have ever had was the 1932 Sox with a 49-102 and 1 record, and they were 28-47 after 75 games. The 1962 Mets, considered to be the worst team ever, they were 41-20-1. They were 21-54 through 75 games. They actually won a game. They actually won game 75 against the San Francisco Giants. R.I.P. to Willie Mays. 2003, the Detroit Tigers, the worst record for a 162-game schedule at 43-119. They were 18-57 after 75 games. So, okay, the Sox are 2 games ahead of that pace. So they might not finish with the worst record in a 162-game schedule. The 1988 Baltimore Orioles, who got off to the worst start in MLB history, and I still track them because the Sox got off to that 3-22 start. And the Orioles actually held their manager accountable during that terrible start by firing him, while the Sox did not. They were 21-54 through 75 games. And the 2018 Orioles, who the Sox seem very similar to, that finished 47-115, they were 23-52. And finally, the 2023 Oakland A's, who can probably be the only team that can claim more apathy than the Sox, and finished 50-120 or 50-112. They were 19-56. Oh, and they won the season series against the Sox last year, by the way. For the record, Fangraphs currently projects the Sox to finish 57-105 with us. So that means they're going 37-50 the rest of the way here, folks. That's what the projections say. Well, let's see what reality says. Okay, I have to keep on the struggling train as Gavin Sheets is in a funk, and I've been meaning to have a discussion on whether he's good at baseball or not. So let's discuss that next. Locked On White Sox. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find a new on-trend favorites that will work for you. It sounds like I also need to sign up for Stitch Fix, as my wardrobe still consists of cargo shorts and t-shirts and hoodies for my sports teams. I'm comfortable. Yeah, I feel very comfortable in them. But it does not always impress my wife, and I still need to look nice at church on Sundays. And well, I keep rocking the same polo. So it's time to step up my game. Sounds like Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. And what I'm liking about them is I don't like to shop, and they can save me and you the time and effort. Plus, I could get outfits that make me look and feel really good. Style that makes you feel as you look is just fantastic to see. And now the best time to get started at stitchfix.com/MLB, and you can get $100 off. That's get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $100 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offers do not include kid fixes. And the White Sox face the Houston Astros in the finale of a 3-game set today. First pitch is at 1:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. Thank you for sticking with me this long. Love you everydayers. Week is almost over, so hopefully you have had a good week so far, and the weekend is ahead. Hopefully you got some great plans. Gavin Sheets, he was one of the few bright spots to start the season. He was seeing the ball well. He had a 286, 384, 476 slash line in April, in 860 OPS, and he was starting to look like a guy the Sox should play at first instead of Andrew Vaughn, who was struggling mightily. Sheets was actually looking like a player that was good at baseball. And, he wasn't really showing that he was a good baseball player last season. Well, he has turned back into a pumpkin. And with Eloy Jimenez coming back from the IL soon, it is time for Sheets to go to the bench. And that is basically what he is now. He is what he is. A left-handed power bat off the bench. Nothing more. And the Sox cannot afford to keep struggling bats in the lineup, especially with Luis Robert Jr. He's still trying to get his footing back after returning from the IL, but at least he's hitting home runs. And he's still Luis Robert Jr., who's awesome at baseball. Sheets, he's had just 4 home runs since April ended. His slash line in May was 190, 316, 342. And in June, it was 200. Right now, in June, it is 200, 286, 380. And he's not even doing what he did okay during May, and that is get on base. And his struggles are just even more amplified right now. In the last 7 days, he's hitting 0. His on-base percentage is .071, and his slugging is 0. His strong April is the only thing propping up his WRC plus, which is at 111. And his expected batting average, according to Baseball Savant, should be 270. So he's really in a funk right now. However, to give him some grace, as you guys know, I like to give people some grace here. He should not be batting second as he was last night. He has a slash line of 094, 216, 125, and just 3 hits when he bats second. So I'm going to put that one on Pedro. I don't know what data you had to say, yeah, let's bat him second against Hunter Brown, who just ripped the Sox apart. Batting fourth is Morris Spot. He's got a 294, 412, 471 slash line this season. But again, when you got Luis Robert Jr. back and Andrew Vaughn heating up, that's going to prevent him from hitting there. So maybe he's still a decent baseball player based on where they've been hitting him lately. It's usually fifth. They hit him second. I don't know why. So maybe it's just where you got to put him in the order. But again, you've got now better options. That's the thing. Garrett Crochet has not played to where he is the best option in the 3 or the 4 hole. So maybe he's nothing more than he just had a career month in April. Maybe that was his career. Like that was the ceiling that he's going to hit. And unfortunately, it was only a month. But yeah, I've determined he's a bench player. And when Eloy comes back, Gavin goes to the bench. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back on tomorrow to talk some more White Sox baseball. We'll go over the good and the bad in the 3-game series against the Astros. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox or follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. Also, feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding poking holes in trading Garrett Crochet, the argument for trading Garrett Crochet, the Sox historically bad record pace, and Gavin Sheets being good at baseball or not. You can leave them on the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow.